Good evening. Plenty to discuss in Christchurch when it comes to the future of education, but is it heading in the right direction? And what does the government's Greater Christchurch Education Renewal Programme actually mean? Tonight, the Education Minister is with us and Lynched starts right now. Great to have your company tonight. The government was forced to take dramatic action on Christchurch schools following the earthquakes, merging or closing several. Some argue it was the perfect timing for the government to implement its agenda for bigger schools, but Education Minister Hekia Parata says the government is conducting the most comprehensive education infrastructure program ever undertaken in this country. And the Minister is with us tonight. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
It is a massive undertaking, isn't it? And when I was looking at the timetables, when I was looking at just how much money the government is committing to schools, in a way that's the story we don't often hear.
Yeah, so this is the single biggest investment in an education network in New Zealand. It's over $1.137 billion. It's a 10-year program because obviously we can't redevelop, build, create all the new buildings that need to occur all in the 1 year. So we've published a 10-year program so that every school knows when they are scheduled to be included. And of course we're constantly reviewing that because if we can move faster, we will.
I want to take you back to possibly almost 2 years ago now when I first interviewed you on News Talk ZB, and there were issues regarding some of the schools that you were going to potentially close or merge. Not all closed, not all merged, but by and large the plan still went ahead. Any regrets, or do you think you've done the best you possibly could have done at the time and now?
Look, it was always going to be tough because the Greater Christchurch set of communities had been through some really historical challenges, and because schools are the hearts of communities, and so there's a lot invested in that. So it was never going to be easy, and I can tell you it wasn't. It was a wrenching decision for me every time as to whether a school needed to close or be merged. And we went through very thorough consultation with those communities, and I think I fronted up to every one of them at least once, if not several times. And I think that where we are now in the rebuild and the creation of new opportunities and challenges is starting to feel like the right place to be, and that's the feedback I'm getting from principals, from teachers, from kids and from parents.
It is interesting, isn't it, because 4 years on since the initial massive shake that changed our landscape and particularly the education landscape in the city forever, we're still having a discussion, we're still having a community debate about whether or not some schools should remain open or closed. And I want to pick you up on Redcliffe School at the moment. An announcement made several weeks ago now that it looks like the government will probably look at closing that site, the original site. Why is that?
So, as Minister of Education, I've got to be concerned about the safety of all children, and I've also got to be concerned about the certainty of the delivery of education. And what we know with the Redcliffe School is that that cliff is degrading and that there will be further rock falls, but we don't know when and we don't know the degree of them. So while all the advice is that the site can be made safe, we don't know about disruption, and we don't want to be moving kids off that site every time there is, further challenge to them. So we're very early in the process. All I've done at this stage is initiate consultation on a proposal for closure. I will take very seriously every submission that anyone makes on Redcliffe's, as I have done in the past, but we're at the very beginning of quite a long process.
Let me pick you up on the beginning of that process, because I've spoken to several staff members and of course the opposition. They're all saying that by and large, even by their own government report, the geotechnical reports do suggest the actual site is safe. Do you subscribe to that?
Well, there are a range of reports, and they talk about how the site can be made safe. Building a 4.5 metre bund, moving the school forward, protecting against the amount of rockfall that might fall, and so on and so forth. But as Minister of Education, I mean, for a start, this is all modelling. We have to be very concerned to ensure that the kids will be safe, but over and above that, as I've already said, that when there are rockfalls, that we're not facing constant disruption, because there has to be certainty and continuity of education, and we're at the beginning of the process, and I am listening.
What are you hearing back from some people in the community of Redcliffs? Do they accept the proposal, do you think, or is it subjective at the moment?
Oh, look, we're very early in the process, and there will be very strong views held by different parts of the community, and I expect that to be the case, and we will hear from them, and there will be sufficient time for that to occur.
The opposition, of course, says this is all about money. You don't want to spend the money to fix something to protect the kids in the future. What do you say?
The opposition is quite wrong, and if they read the papers that I have published, it makes it clear that the cost of rebuilding Redcliff's on his site versus building out the schools on either side, Sumner and Mount Pleasant, there is no material difference between those costs. It will still be several millions of dollars, and the papers make it very clear that this is not a cost-cutting or cost-saving exercise at all.
The thing is, this school's been closed since 2011, and I do question, I mean, these kids have obviously had to go down the road. They've managed to survive okay, I would imagine, for the past 3 years. The
school is delivering a very good quality of education. They're doing it on the site of Van Ash, and the children are learning, and the reporting looks good.
Okay,
so it's not about the quality of education they're receiving, because they're receiving a good quality of education. It is about the certainty of delivery of education on the former site.
Okay, so parents, teachers, concerned community members can make submissions now? What's the process?
They can. All I've done at this point is to initiate consultation. They have opportunity to give feedback on what they think, at which point I will consider all of that. I'll get advice from the experts, and then we would be in a next stage, which is an interim decision, when there'll be further opportunity for feedback before a final decision is made further down the track.
Before we take a break, I want to quickly pick up on Rangiora High School. What on earth is going there? You got principal jet-setting away at a time when the school's been told to watch its cash. Looks dodgy.
So there are a number of issues that have come to the fore in Rangiora, and they have been serious enough that we have removed the board and appointed a commissioner. And the role of the commissioner is to scope all of those issues, to decide on a plan of action, and then execute it.
But oddly enough, the principal stays though.
Because the principal is an employee, and the commissioner makes recommendations as to what the next steps are. But first and foremost, natural justice requires that there is an opportunity to get to the bottom of the facts, the allegations, the issues, and then have a plan on how they get remediated.
How long will this plan take, do you think?
Well, that's a matter for the commissioner. I mean, there's no point in my appointing someone and then making decisions for them. So we will wait to hear, and we have a lot of confidence in this commissioner.
You think it'll take a long time to try and sort out the issues at Rangiora? I mean, all this seems to come down to is the appointment of money, doesn't it? It's money, isn't it?
Well, I don't know that the issues are confined to that. That's what we're waiting for the commissioner to establish.
Just finally, interestingly enough, though, when this happened, when the commissioner was appointed, many parents would contact me saying, well, we saw this one coming. No surprise to them. Was it a surprise to you? Did you hear rumours? Did you hear inklings that the school could have been in some kind of trouble?
Yes. I mean, you don't suddenly go from a very high-performing school to instituting a commissioner. So the ministry was aware that there were problems, and were keeping in touch with the school and keeping an eye on what was happening and working with the school until it got to the point that it was clear that the weight of issues were so serious that we needed to take this step and remove the board and appoint a commissioner, because we're concerned to ensure, as all parents are, that their kids are getting the best education possible.
So what is your message then for parents who have got kids at Rangiora High School? Are you confident it is business as usual with a principal and a commissioner?
I am very confident that the commissioner has been appointed because she has all the skills necessary to ensure that the school is well managed.
Still to come on Lynched, some schools in Christchurch moaning that their funding will be cut as their rating increases. That's next. Hi, I'm Chris Lynch. Join me every Monday at 8:30 on CTV as we discuss the issues affecting you, your family and everything to do with Canterbury. That's CTV 8:30 right here.
Computer not working? Replace or repair? DIY or get a technician? Looking for parts? Thinking of upgrading? Need accessories? You've got questions, we've got answers. Global PC.
The preparation, the devotion, the fearlessness, the intensity. Runway model management. First impressions are everything.
Made to measure interiors, made with care, made for you.
Join Graham Sinclair and the team at Gone Fishing as they bring you great stories, fishing tips and beautiful scenery. Gone Fishing, Friday night at 8:30, right here on CTV.
Welcome back to Lynched. Education Minister Hekia Parata is my guest this evening. Let's discuss this decile issue at the moment. Some schools, some primary schools in Christchurch, their decile rating has gone up, which essentially means it's a good thing depending on what way you look at it.
Yes.
But at the same time, if that goes up, then their funding goes down.
Correct.
It's a double-edged sword, and I point to the issue with Linwood North School crying foul over the fact that they may have some of their funding cut. What do you see in this, and what is the answer?
So the first thing to know about the decile funding system is that it is a funding system and it is not a record of whether a school is doing a great job in terms of education. It is about supplementing funding into a school where the community has, a lower socioeconomic status, if you like. It makes up, on average, over only 12% of all the funding. 88% of funding into schools goes to schools quite apart from what happens with decile funding. The second thing to know is that we recalibrate decile rankings after every census. So it's not the Ministry of Education's data, it is the census data. And then we use that to recalibrate our decile ratings. So after every census, what we've found is about a third of schools go up in decile ranking, a third go down, and a third stay the same. Now, those who go up in a decile ranking lose money. Those who go down in a decile ranking gain money. So two things to say. The first is that we provide a transition period of between 12 and 18 months to adjust to if you are a school who's losing money. The second thing to say is that if a school disputes its ranking, it can appeal. And so about 140 of the 2,500 schools have already appealed, and the ministry is working its way through those.
So I'm trying to work out if I'm a principal of a school, if I want a higher decile or not, because one thing it's about reputation, isn't it? The other thing it's about cash.
Well, one of the problems that I have always had with the decile ranking system, and I've been very public about this, is that I think it's really well intentioned. In other words, how do we give more resources to those schools who need it most? So it's well intentioned, but it's a blunt instrument, because what has happened is that schools and the community have decided that if you have a high decile decile ranking, you must be a better school than if you have a low decile ranking. It hasn't got anything to do with the quality of teaching and learning. It is to do with the need for funding. And so you either get stigmatised at the lower decile ranking, or at the higher, it's often used as a branding. And neither of those are true.
Well, it's particularly interesting in Christchurch, where apparently it all matters what school you go to. Do you know that in Christchurch?
I have heard that.
It's bizarre.
It matters everywhere that you get a good quality of education.
It's a Christchurch. Well, of course, but it's a Christchurch thing. What school did you go to is the question they always ask. I don't know why. Well, that's interesting then. So if that's the case, why not make the decile ratings public then? Why not only tell the schools?
Because again, it is about providing supplementary funding to a school in order that they can use that funding to ensure that every kid gets the best education possible. It's just that over time it's developed into being used as a brand or being blamed as a stigma, and neither of those, as I say, are true. So we're in the process of looking at how we might review that to get it better targeted and better focused on what it's really about, great education for every kid.
Minister, are you worried with what's going on with some schools when it comes to if little Johnny and little James misbehave and the school punishes them, the parents can say, no, I don't want you to punish them, I'm off to the High Court. And I point to the issue with St Bede's. And this is not the first time as well. We had the case of the guy that refused to cut his hair. Yeah. I'm worried this is sending the wrong message to a young generation, saying if you misbehave, you can get out of it. If mummy and daddy have got enough cash to get a lawyer to take them down to the High Court. That concerns me. Are you concerned?
Yes, but first of all, we have to keep in mind that we live in a democracy, and a very active one in New Zealand, and part of that is the right of anyone to be able to take an issue to the court and for the court to hear it. So I would never get in the way of that opportunity being available. Balanced against that has to be confidence in the management of a school and the opportunity to stand for election, to be on the board of the school, to make governance decisions. And I think that it is really important that where parents are unhappy, that they use clear processes available within their school to raise those issues and to have them dealt with.
Okay, let me phrase it another way. You've got children, they misbehave, they decide to go on a baggage carousel, they go through a highly securitized security area. They're told their punishment is they can't enter a sports game. As a mum, what would you tell them?
Oh, look, I think that as parents, we all have high expectations of our children's behaviour. And as I've just said, we also have opportunities as parents to stand for the board of the school at which our children are at and to make the rules there, and then to help the children abide by those rules and to support the management in implementing those rules.
But it helps if you've got cash, though, doesn't it, to employ a lawyer that can take on the High Court?
Look, the school's responsibility is to have really good processes and to make sure that those are clear and understood. And it's pretty difficult decision for any school to be making around what they are going to do in terms of behaviour management. And so it's pretty important that all the parents in that community understand what the expectations are at that school, and that the school is able to make it clear, if you're not happy, here's how you raise those issues with the school.
Would you be concerned if another case pops up of parents disputing the punishment given to little Johnny and James next time round?
Look, at the point where anyone takes a case to court, then that is a matter before the court, and it's not appropriate for me as Minister of Education to be interfering in that or commenting on that. I guess what I'm saying is
that why you couldn't comment at the time, because
of course
it's before the courts, there's a process there?
Yes.
Right.
But it is really important that schools have good processes in place, and that parents have confidence in that, and that parents use those processes.
All right, we need to take a break. Still to come on the program, are they called supersized schools or campuses? What's the difference? And the QE2 side, will it work out? That's next.
With all the latest innovations in the world of technology, Shift has everything you need to stay informed and in the know. Shift, 2:15 on Monday, right here on CTV.
Opus is recreating the heart of Canterbury. From large-scale projects to commercial buildings. Your design, your vision. Opus.
Colour in your life. Colour Steel, the roof of New Zealand.
Diversity. No deposit. Instant finance. Convenience. Open 7 days. Austin Motor Company.
Drive It showcases the new arrivals to the motoring world, comparing and testing the latest models to discover which one is the best. Drive It, Sunday afternoons at 2:30, only on CTV.
Welcome back to Lynched on CTV. My guest tonight is Hekia Parata. Hekia, in terms of, let's start with the super school idea. It was touted in the media as this big giant mess. It was a super school for Aranui that no one wanted. I feel there's a bit of a shift though with the so-called campus idea, almost a one-stop shop for all your healthcare facilities, which, let's be frank, is probably going to be better for the parents who either can't afford to take their kids over to the other side for a doctor's visit, what have you. Are you getting a sense the tide is now turning and the community is embracing this campus idea now? Is that fair?
Yes, I think that is very fair. But if we just go back a step, the thing is, change is always, a bit of a challenge and a bit of a threat. And now that we're in much more, I guess, of the real place where the community itself has had the opportunity to see and say what they would like have to happen at the campus in Aranui. They're aware that the government is putting, $40 million into this, that it does provide them completely with the opportunity of, will we have separate primary and separate intermediate and separate secondary, or will we have one streamlined approach? What kind of support services will we be able to have there? What will be a better linkage between ending senior secondary and going on to tertiary options? And the community voice has had a huge opportunity to be heard in this process, and I think the board has been doing an outstanding job there, because it's a very big responsibility. It is a new and innovative way of looking at the provision of education in a whole of community sense, and I think the Aranui community has responded magnificently to this opportunity.
I think you're right, and I think they understand and they're getting it, and so to the media, that this is going to be a massive campus, and as I said before, a one-stop shop that's going to be available for parents and students, and hopefully not only will they benefit in an education sense, but I hope too when it comes to their mental health and of course the health facilities that will be there as well, right?
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. And I mean, we have some examples of this in other parts of the country, and the Aranui board has looked around and seen what can they learn from these other models of it. But look, this is a opportunity for this community to deliver world-class education in a campus that provides for these ancillary needs. We know the 4 things that make the biggest difference to education. 2 of them are in school, the quality of teaching and the quality of leadership, and 2 of them are out of school. The strength of involvement of parents in their children's education and the expectations held by the community of the kids in that community. And this Aranui campus, just like the putative Avonside and Shirley Boys campus, has the opportunity to deliver all of that.
We'll talk about Avonside Evenside and Shirley just shortly, but I want to pick you up actually on the first incentive to try and give more cash to, was it for principals or staff? You were going to incentivise them somehow, throw more cash to them, hope they go to a school that perhaps would be seen as underperforming or in a poorer area of Christchurch. A lot of controversy about that at the time, but has anybody picked you up on that? Has anybody said, oh, pick me, I'll go if you're going to give me an extra 10 grand or whatever the amount was?
So first of all, Mr. Lynch, we are not throwing taxpayers' cash at anybody. So it is a policy, though, that says how do we attract really great, experienced, capable principals to the schools that need them the most? Because in our system, we've tended to focus very much on the size of the school attracts the most experienced principal. So we've offered this principal recruitment allowance on top of what the school would normally be entitled to do to try and attract some
How much is it? How much additional?
It can be up to 50,000. It isn't a complete 50,000. Well, you need to become an outstanding one.
Well, there's no hope. Will it work? Have you had any interest though? I mean,
yes, we have. And
because look, I'm going to be honest. Money talks.
So the Aranui campus, we have approved that it can use this allowance to attract the best kind of principal that will be needed for this.
Has it worked or will it work?
We're still in the very early stages of it. We haven't actually appointed any principal yet under this policy, but we have had schools apply for it. Some of them have been successful, some of them haven't.
Okay. Speaking of Shirley Boys and Avonside Girls High School, a lot of contention about those schools, particularly changing locations or what have you, but the feedback I'm getting on News Talk CB on my Facebook site and in the community, by and large, is yay. There's going to be 2 highly successful schools back over on the east at QE2, and hopefully this sends a message to, I'm hoping, investors and local business owners that they'll need a wraparound support in that area now as well, so it's probably a good start, and I'm hearing good things. But I never thought we'd make it because I always thought that the site at QE2, the land was dodgy. I mean, where are we at with that? I mean, the QE2 area itself is quite big though, isn't it?
Look, the site has been announced and I expect that master planning will get underway, later this year. I think it's really exciting the way that the Avonside and Shirley Boys communities have responded to both the challenge and the opportunity, that they're going to co-locate, but they're still going to offer single-sex education for those parents and students who want that option. And so, look, it's what the creativity and innovation that they can bring to this opportunity is endless. It's completely up to them. We want to invest as a government, as I said, over $1 billion into the Greater Christchurch network. We've just discussed the example of Aranui. This is another example. And, I have every confidence that these communities will see and seize this opportunity and create something pretty outstanding.
Well, I do know that Community Board Chair Andrea Cummings in that way, who's left of field, to be fair, from Labour, is really excited because she sees this as the start, hopefully, as something else. If the government is showing an interest in the East, and, it's easy to dispute they haven't, to be fair, hopefully this is a sign of things to come. But I also want to ask you about last Friday, you had your gummies on out in Marshlands, opening up another school.
Yeah, we were
didn't make the media, though. Didn't make that story. Why?
Well, I'm not entirely... Well, it's making this media, isn't it? And, congratulations, CTV. So Marshlands has moved down the road at Preston's Road. It's a school that is currently on a very good growth trajectory, so its roll is up at 280. We had a really fabulous time there. Kids came in off the holidays, their parents and teachers for the ceremonial turning of the turf. The principal, Ms. Pascoe and her staff and the community have involved all of their community as well as the kids in what do they think they'd like to see, what do they like most about school, what do they hate the most, what do they want to see in this new opportunity. And so the design, they've got the design work there, the bulldozers were there, we were there with hard hats on and high-vis jackets, and we are on track for that school to open in the first day of Term 1 next year.
Education Minister Kia Parata, nice to see you. Thanks for coming on to Lynched for your debut performance. Hope you come back.
Thanks for having me.
And that is our show. To contact the program, you can join me on Facebook, facebook.com/LynchedNZ, or email me on News Talk ZB. Speaking of News Talk ZB, on tomorrow's program, Christchurch Leanne Dalzell joins me. And don't forget the show streams worldwide on iHeartRadio.co.nz. Download the app right now. But from all of us here at CTV, you have a great night.